style was Art Nouveau.
Art Nouveau grew out of the dark, restless energies of the industrial city. In the age of Darwin and Freud, it was fixated with nature, sensuality, and sex. In the space of a decade or so, Art Nouveau went from being nowhere to everywhere. Lapped up by the burgeoning middle classes of Europe, it was mimicked and mass-produced. What began as a revolution in the name of truth, beauty and nature ended in derision, decadence and decay. In this series, I'll be visiting the great cities of Europe, the work of visionaries like Emile Gallé, artists like Gustav Klimt, and entrepreneurs like Arthur Liberty blossomed, all too briefly. Paris, at the end of the 19th century, loved its bullet-straight boulevards, its imposing monuments and classically inspired architecture. But beyond the grandeur, the population had exploded from 500,000 to 2.5 million people by 1900. Those elegant boulevards were gridlocked with horses, carriages, and crowds. Things needed to change. The city planners came up with a radical solution. The metro, ladies and gentlemen. Typically Paris, typically Art Nouveau. The good citizens of Paris were shocked. Entrances like batwings, seamless rackets, sensuous curves. It was a bold declaration of the new art for the new century. The first metro entrances appeared just in time for a massive celebration in Paris, the World Fair of 1900. It was when the city would show off its cutting-edge new style. At the heart of the fair were two huge buildings standing opposite each other, the Grand Palais and the Petit Palais. This is the Grand Palais. It's exquisite, isn't it? It's beautiful, substantial, one of the biggest and best exhibition spaces you'll find anywhere in the world. Never mind Paris, you'd love it. Unfortunately, I'm not going there. I'm going to Le Petit Palais, a small palace, I think. Perhaps they were boasting to their foreign visitors. In France, this, all 16,000 square meters of it, is what we call small. Bonjour, Monsieur Chazal. Welcome to L'Hôtel Stephen. Merci, Monsieur. Gio Chazal is director of the Petit Palais. Can you give me some idea of the sheer size of the exhibition in terms of Paris? It was a great big event, wasn't it?
It's an international exhibition. It was, of course, a very, very famous event. It was from this place to La Tour Eiffel, and along and along River Seine. So it was absolutely incredible, and it was a discovery for public to look after artworks, but also engines and so on. Also, it was a change of century, so it was a very great moment.
Designed to showcase the very best of modern art and industry, the World Fair was France's manifesto for the 20th century. There were moving walkways and a grand electricity hall. Over 60 countries exhibited and 50 million people visited. It was the party to end all parties, and Art Nouveau was the guest of honor. Around the city, the dramatic jewellery of René Lalique organic forms of Émile Gallet's glass, and the alluring femme fatale of Alphonse Mucha dazzled the Paris crowds.
With all its marble and mosaics, and gilt and glass, this was an opulent luxury showroom for Art Nouveau. But it was much more than that. It also held up a dazzling mirror to French hopes and fears at the turn of the 20th century.
Paris was overcrowded, filthy, and simmering with anti-Semitic tensions. At the World Fair, Art Nouveau was at the height of its popularity, and for a brief moment, it seemed like an antidote to the ugliness of the modern age. But on the cusp of the 20th century, how did this upstart new style threaten to upstage the conservative ranks of traditional French design? It was only 5 years before the 1900 World Fair that Art Nouveau had begun to emerge from the licentious bohemian quarter of the city. In 1895, Montmartre, the playground on the edge of the French capital, had become a magnet for artists looking for inspiration and excitement. Degas and Toulouse-Lautrec painted the local prostitutes and dancers, and they became emblems of the city's sexual freedom. Decadent, licentious, drug-fueled, absinthe-soaked. There was a downside as well, of course, but it was here in Montmartre that the artists of the day, the avant-garde artists, earned their stripes. Of all the artists who set the scene for Art Nouveau, Charles Baudelaire was the most subversive. In 1857, he shocked Paris to its breeches with his first volume of poetry, Les Fleurs du Mal. It's all there in the title, really, isn't it? The Flowers of Evil. He was fascinated by the dark side of nature and human nature. Sex, death, vampires, lesbians, and all this at the same time as Anthony Trollope was writing Barchester Towers.
Les chacals, les panthères, les lys, les singes, les scorpions, les vautours, les serpents, les monstres dilapissants, les blancs, rampants, grognants. Dans la ménagerie infâme de nos fils, il en est un.
It was in the backstreet drinking dens and hash joints of Paris that Baudelaire's ideas about nature and art were handed down to Art Nouveau designers.
Louise, what is Baudelaire telling us about nature?
He embraces all this artificial, and he really vaunts the merit of artificiality over nature. And that's the beginnings of decadentism, if you like, a rejection of naturalism and of its values.
Is that because science and industry was giving us so much, one day we could tweak nature if it suited us?
Yeah, there was a desire to improve on nature, to take it, to work on it, and to do something better and something different. And that leads us into decadence, it leads us into Art Nouveau.
The dancers and performers from Paris's nocturnal world embodied these dangerous new ideas. Like moths to a flame, Art Nouveau designers were drawn to these women. And none was more nocturnal than the divine Sarah Bernhardt. She was Art Nouveau's ultimate muse. Bernhardt was celebrated as the greatest actress of her day, as much by herself as anyone else. The word bohemian could almost have been invented for her. Amongst her many lovers, she counted crowned heads of Europe. It's even said she slept in a coffin, believing that playing dead might improve her tragic roles. Baudelaire would have been proud of her.
Just look at Sarah there, reclining on her chaise longue with her fan, her eyes imploring, no demanding, that you give her your full attention. And that dog at her feet represents fashionable Parisian society, writers, poets, artists, for whom Sarah was a muse. But look deep into Fido's eyes. I think he's seen things in that boudoir no animal should be exposed to.
Sarah was about to play a new role in the Paris debut of Art Nouveau. It was Christmas Day, 1894. Sarah needed a poster to advertise her new play, Gismonda. But who to turn to? Alphonse Mucha was a Moravian artist who'd worked his way across Europe to study art in Paris. He really wanted to be a fine artist, not a commercial one, but he was living hand to mouth. Then he was approached to create the Gismonda poster. He put his ambitions on hold and got to work. This is Mucha later in life, but today it's his grandson John and John's wife Sarah who take up the story.
The first poster of Art Nouveau.
So it's the first poster of what they did for Sarah Bernhardt.
Yes. This is indirectly the first step to actually make art available to the general public. You no longer have to be rich.
How did it come about?
It came about in a most extraordinary way because what happened was that Mucha, who was a struggling artist,